The Carroll County community is frightened and concerned tonight as investigators search for whoever killed these two Delphi teens. The bodies of 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams were found after the two disappeared while hiking.
And tonight, CBS 4 is speaking exclusively with the owner of the property where the two girls were found dead. Alexis McAdams is live in Delphi with more on that and the investigation. Alexis.
That's right, Bob, Debbie. This investigation is active and ongoing. Tonight, investigators are telling us they're using every resource they have to search Carroll County and surrounding areas to find the suspect or suspects who killed these two teenage girls. As you mentioned, we talk exclusively tonight with the owner of the 40 acres here behind me. That is private property, and that's where those girls' bodies were found yesterday afternoon. Tonight, he tells us a few things about where those bodies were found and some of the things surrounding the investigation, but also says that the man who found those bodies was a volunteer who lives nearby. 24 hours after two bodies were found in a wooded area in Delphi, a coroner confirms the town's worst fears. The bodies belong to 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German, who were both last seen hiking in that area on a day off from school. We now know the two girls were murdered and their killer is still out there.
We have nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track him down.
The gruesome discovery was made on Ron Logan's 40-acre lot, turning his property into a crime scene filled with investigators, dive teams, and FBI officials.
There was hundreds of cars and vehicles and trucks, those generator trucks that keep the lights going, and they had the whole woods lit up. It looked like a football field out here.
Police tell us a volunteer searcher discovered the bodies off of the trail route in the woods. Logan says that searcher is his neighbor who noticed obvious signs of foul play after he found the girls.
Tuesday, he apparently went back there with another searcher, and they found them back there.
Officials searched every inch of Logan's 40 acres and the woods behind the nearby Morning Heights Cemetery, which is just across the stream from the Monon High Bridge, the last spot the girls were seen. Right now, the suspect or suspects who killed these girls is still on the run. After 50 years of living on the land, Logan says the girls would have had a very hard time traveling the wooded area on their own.
It's rough. Back of my property here, there's a ravine on that. It goes way down. It's real deep. The ground runs like this, and it's real difficult to navigate.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. We feel confident, and you know, we're going to do everything we can within our resources to reach justice in this situation.
So who are police looking for, and what could be the possible motive for someone or a group of people to kill these two teenage girls here in Delphi? Well, officers tell us tonight those are questions they cannot answer at this point in this active and ongoing investigation. But what they do need from the public is tips. They've already had hundreds that they have been following up on in this community, but they still need your help. If you were in the area here near that Monon High Bridge, which is the last point where those two teen girls were seen, you took pictures in that area, that could be evidence that could lead to the suspect or suspects that murdered these two teens. If you have information, call the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Reporting tonight live in Delphi, I'm Alexis McAdams, CBS 4 News.
The bodies of those two teenagers were discovered in Delphi 3 days ago, as you know. CBS 4's Alexis McAdams joins us now after walking the property where those girls were found.
And actually, yeah, this is the first time I think that we're talking about this.
Yeah, we were actually down in that area today for the very first time. We were down there with the property owner, Ron Logan, and this is his 40-acre private lot behind me. To trek down to the area where these girls were found, it was so steep down a ravine, it was really actually hard to keep our footing. But Logan showed us for the very first time that crime scene. Tonight, investigators have lifted the crime scene tape from this area and tell us they're going through hundreds of tips trying to find any information that could lead to a possible suspect or suspects in this double murder investigation. So take a look at this video walking through with Ron Logan today. He's showing us the property. He knows this treacherous terrain better than anyone. So in order to get down there, like I mentioned, went down a large ravine that was so steep we pretty much had to walk sideways to get down that way. And this is where the girls were found. It's less than half a mile from the Monon High Bridge where they were last seen on Monday. Officers still processing evidence that they gathered here. They were out here for hours ever since those girls went missing. They're looking for any clue that could lead to the person or persons who killed 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German. The scene may be clear tonight, but Logan tells me his property won't ever be the same.
I want to show you everything, how they could have got here, because you're going to be as confused as I am. How did these two little girls get here from the high bridge with all this rough terrain without somebody making them come here? The high bridge is right across the creek here. It runs all the way down where this creek and the land joins together. Where they joined together is the last photographs taken of the girls. So they had to come all the way through this territory to get down in here. Not an easy trip.
Right now, we have talked to family members tonight who tell us they're just clinging on to any hope that someone will come forward with information that could lead to a tip in this investigation and bring them closure in this horrific investigation. Right now, they are working on funeral arrangements, and also community members here in the Delphi area, which is very small and tight-knit, like we've both mentioned, Bob and Debbie. They are trying to work on some organized events that could bring money that could help these families rebuild and help out with those funeral expenses. Right now, this is an active and ongoing investigation. Officials asking for anyone with any bit of information, even a photo that was snapped near the Monon High Bridge around those times the girls went missing, to please come forward, because that tip could be a big get in this investigation. Right now, no suspects yet and no one in custody. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Alexis McAdams reporting for us. Thank you. And new information in the Delphi case 6 months after the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German.
And tonight, the killer remains on the loose, but we are learning much more about what evidence police have that could lead to that killer. CBS 4's Alexis McAdams sat down with a lead investigator on this case today. She found out there is DNA evidence out there and more audio.
Tonight, the lead detective on the Delphi case tells me although the killer thinks that he got away, every single day lab techs are working to process evidence, including DNA that was left at the crime scene.
It takes a lot of times, and we want to be very thorough, so we want to take our time, make sure our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, but it's a tough case.
A case Indiana State Police First Sergeant Jerry Holeman has worked every day for the past 6 months.
We're getting closer every day. I know that's cliche, but we are.
Dozens of state, local, and federal agencies still working around the clock to track down the man they believe killed Abby Williams and Libby German while the girls were out on a walk on the Delphi Historic Trails in February.
We're stronger than ever.
Police tell me they've conducted hundreds of interviews, followed up on thousands of leads, and served dozens of search warrants to find clues the killer may have left behind. Was there DNA evidence found at the scene of the crime?
I think at every crime scene you have, you're going to have DNA. We're still working on identifying whose all DNA we have there.
Along with DNA evidence, police also have the suspect's voice. Police tell me Libby recorded the killer's voice on her cell phone, telling the girls to go down the hill. Investigators say she hit record after he approached them near the Monon High Bridge. Today, Sergeant Holeman tells me they recovered even more audio from Libby's phone, which was found with the girls at the crime scene.
We've only released a portion of it. There's some others that we think could help us, but again, protecting the integrity of the investigation is the key here. So we can't release everything we have because there's only certain people that know the details. And if we release everything, then we get into possible false confessions.
Sergeant Holeman says several people have come forward and said they saw the killer walking on the trails the day Abby and Libby were killed. Those people helped develop this composite sketch that was released last month.
Is there anything we did or didn't do that jeopardized this case? No. I still believe somebody knows. Somebody knows what happened. For whatever reason, they won't come forward.
Every single day, dozens of detectives are still working the Delphi investigation and tell me they are not giving up, still following up on thousands of leads, but they need your help tonight. So if you recognize that man's picture or you recognize his voice, pick up the phone right now and call 844-459-5786. Reporting tonight in Delphi, I'm Alexis McAdams. Back to you.
And state police detectives are in Colorado right now to speak with a person of interest in the Delphi deaths. They are talking to this man, Daniel Nations. Nations was arrested in Palmer Lake, Colorado, after police say he threatened people with a hatchet near a popular hiking trail. He has a long criminal history that's illustrated by all these mugshots, some of those crimes committed here in Indiana. Tonight, we're learning Nations was in central Indiana the week Abby and Libby were murdered. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob Donaldson.
I'm Debbie Knox. CBS 4's Alexis McAdams is in Morgan County with more on where he was just one day after the girls vanished.
That's right. Tonight, deputies here at the Morgan County Sheriff's Department tell us Nations was here one day after Abby and Libby were murdered. Police say 31-year-old Daniel Nations was living in Morgan County when Abby Williams and Libby German were murdered.
The last address that he reported with us was that he was staying homeless in an area of State Road 67 under the bridges.
Because Nations was homeless and a convicted sex offender, he had to check in weekly with an investigator at the Morgan County Sheriff's Department.
He came in on February 7th. 2017, and then he came in on February 14th, 2017. And checked in.
February 14th, the day the girls' bodies were found. According to these forms from the Morgan County Sheriff's Department, Nations never missed a weekly check-in from January 31st until April 4th of this year.
He was always punctual as far as reporting.
At this point, he said that he had a car or he didn't have a car.
There was times where he did, and there's times where, he has having vehicle problems, I think.
Though Nations checked in the day after the murders, less than 2 weeks later, he ended up in the Morgan County Jail for failure to show up to a scheduled court appearance. After that, Nations moved to Johnson County, where officials tell me he did not notify them of his whereabouts. Tonight, Indiana State Police tell us they're still checking into Nations' alibi, as they also look into hundreds of others in connection to the Delphi case.
And a person of interest in the Delphi double homicide investigation. We're digging into his time spent in Indiana.
And Bob, State Police say that Daniel Nations could be connected to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. Nations is a convicted sex offender who was recently arrested in Colorado. CBS 4's Alexis McAdams spoke to the family of one of the girls about this update.
Until last week, Libby German's grandparents, Mike and Becky Patty, had never heard of Daniel Nations.
What are you thinking right now, today, knowing that he's in a jail right now in Colorado and possibly could be connected?
Well, I'm certainly hopeful that the information proves that this is the guy.
Then they saw his picture.
I don't want to get my hopes up too much. We've been through this several times, and when you go through that drop, when it's not them, is tremendous.
So when you look at the suspect sketch and Daniel Nations' picture, do you think that there's similarities?
Absolutely. Oh, I see the goatee and the lips. It's kind of what sticks out to me.
The eyes. The eyes. I think the eyes are what convinced me that it could potentially be him.
Right now, those similarities are not enough to connect the convicted sex offender to the Delphi case. He was living homeless in Indiana at the time of the murders of Abby and Libby.
I don't want to downplay it, as just another person, but it is another tip and lead, and I've learned through this whole thing that I have to rely on facts and data.
Nations' arrest is just one of hundreds of leads Indiana State Police are investigating.
You're sitting here thinking, I still can't believe we don't have the killer behind bars.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do feel that way. But until I receive that call from the investigators that we've arrested somebody responsible for the murders of the girls here in Delphi, we're staying vigilant on our campaign to spread out this word as far and as wide as possible.
The Patties and Williams still waiting for that one last tip.
If they do put somebody behind bars and you do have the chance to say something to that person, is there anything that you would want to say to Abby and Libby's killer?
I've thought about that a lot. And you can plan, you can rehearse, you can think you'll know exactly what you're going to say to him if you was face to face with him. But until you're standing there, I don't think anybody would ever know what they'd say to him.